Hey everybody, and welcome back to Tailgate Talks with me, Chantel Stone. Now this is being brought to you by SLURRYWORX. Now I really look forward to today's question, or rather an inquiry from actually repeated multiple times through private message where, and I love this because it means that you guys have been watching my videos or, going through the LinkedIn post because you want to know, when would I select an all-polymer system over a bentonite-based system? And I love this because it means you recognize that I do prefer bentonite-based systems. They just work in the majority of our applications, and I can build so many more properties into them. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't like polymer systems. I do, but there are a lot of conditions that, for me, have to be fulfilled before I'm going to select an all-polymer system. So I'm here to go over some of those about when would I choose an all-polymer system, what conditions have to be met for me. So the first thing is I'm going to go over the soils, that what we're going to drill through, the geology will actually be a big part of when I'm going to choose an all-polymer system. Next is, what equipment am I going to have on site? Is there something I specifically need to do? If I need to clean my fluid versus a sacrificial fluid, that's going to drive whether or not I decide to use an all-polymer system. And finally, the application of the drilling. So what is my purpose of drilling? What am I drilling for? That's actually going to drive it as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the soils. If I am going to drill with an all-polymer system, it's because I am drilling strictly through clays, reactive clays. Now, the reason being is most of the time, the polymers that we select for all polymer systems are those that inhibit and control reactive clays. So they're very good at this. And if I can build an all polymer system that has more polymer product in it, in other words, more chemistry in it, then I can inhibit those clays so much better. Now, if the clays have, and they often do, have a little bit of sand in them or a little bit of something else, that's usually fine for an all polymer system. And, like a sandy clay where it's majority clay, then that's fine. That will work with an all polymer system. But if I'm going to be drilling through large sections or even sometimes small sections of that's strictly sand or cobbles and gravels, and it's mostly that, I'm not going to use an all polymer system because all polymer systems do not make a filter cake. They do not have filtration control. So what that means is when you're pumping them and creating pressure downhole, you have hydraulic pressure, it's going to force that fluid out into the formation. And then that fluid migrates, is what we say, further into the formation. And so we get fluid loss. We get lost circulation events. And it's just not conducive. It's not good for those type of soils. Now, so that's when I would use a bentonite system, or I would develop a system just for drilling through that type of geology. The other thing too is, especially with cobbles and gravels and even large pieces of clay, if we're trying to carry them out of the hole and move them out of the hole, all polymer fluids do not have carrying capacity. You have to use velocity. You have to use what's called viscous strike. You have to use other things and make that polymer, you have to really make that polymer work to be able to have good hole cleaning. And an all polymer system also doesn't have suspension. So if you stop pumping on that fluid, your cuttings are going to settle either to the bottom of your bore and create a cutting bed, or to the bottom of your well on top of your bit, or start, it's going to start building up cutting beds. So, with those conditions, if I expect to run into those, all polymer systems can sometimes cause us more problems than they actually are doing good for us. So those are the conditions for soils. Now for equipment, even if I'm drilling through all clays, and I say, hey, that's a great condition to run an all polymer system, if I plan to reclaim that system, if I'm recycling it and want to reuse it, usually recyclers, reclaimers, mud cleaning equipment with screens, they're often not compatible with these types of systems because the polymers will blind off those screens and then they just won't work. They won't actually clean our fluid. And they, again, cause us a lot of cleaning problems and things like that. So another kind of condition, I'd usually only use them if we're going to be using them through sacrificial fluids, typically. And then the last condition is application. So there's a lot of places that the all-polymer system works well, but there's some places that I would never, ever recommend it. And one of those is drilling a water well. Now, here's why. Is because if I'm drilling a water well and getting down to my production zone, and my production zone is mostly sand, you know, maybe that's where I'm getting my water is through the sands, or maybe some, you know, like cobbles and gravels and things like that. I already mentioned that an all-polymer system under, you know, because we're pumping and when there's pressure, will go further out into the formation. Well, at some point we want to develop that well out. So we need it to come back and clean the well so we can get clean, fresh water. All polymer systems become so much more difficult to get those back out of a well. Whereas if I had a bentonite system that had a filter cake, I can actually remove that so much easier, develop that out, because it's not going as far back into the formation. So yeah, there is some limitations to when I would or would not use an all polymer system. Now I will make this one caveat to all this. In the drilled shaft industry, they often use all polymer systems, but it works because they don't have the same downhole hydraulic pressures that all the other drilling industries really have, because it's just the nature of how they drill. It's a little more passive. It's often auger driven, so they don't have those pumping pressures, and the polymer systems often will work very well for them. So, okay, I hope that helped answer your questions under some of the conditions I would or would not use the all polymer systems. I will say I have used it in HDD industry. I've used it in the mining industry when we're drilling through all clays, and they have worked phenomenally well. So there are places I love them. Now, I really hope that has helped this week. I hope you've enjoyed this response video. Please keep sending in those questions and inquiries, and maybe you'll get yours answered next time. So we're going to keep making your slurry work for you, and we'll catch you later. Bye.